Labour's sentencing czar, David Gauke, recommended that criminals sentenced to more than 4 years behind bars should be let out after serving just half of their jail term behind bars. Killers and rapists will be let out of prison early to end the overcrowding crisis behind bars, prompting fury from victims and campaigners. Labour's sentencing czar, David Gauke, recommended that criminals sentenced to more than 4 years behind bars should be let out after serving just half of their jail term behind bars. And Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood is today expected to accept this hugely controversial proposal in a bid to prevent prisons from running out of space. Only the most extreme offenders will be refused the right to leave prison early, justice sources have admitted. Mr. Gauke, in a wide-ranging review, also concluded more sex offenders should be chemically castrated to prevent them attacking more people. The former Conservative Justice Secretary proposed serious offenders sentenced to 4 or more years for violent or sexual offenders should move to a post-custody stage at halfway. Ministers are set to introduce a progression model, which will see prisoners let out of their cells after just a third of their sentence. They will then spend another third of their sentence under house arrest. Only then will they be allowed onto license and back into the community. Serious offenders will have to wait until they have served half of their sentence. And short sentences of under 12 months will be abolished in the vast majority of cases. Domestic Abuse Commissioner Dame Nicole Jacobs said, by adopting these measures the government will be sending a clear message to domestic abusers that they can now offend with little consequence. I recognize the difficult situation ministers are in and that our approach to sentencing must change to address the prison capacity crisis. But watering down our criminal justice system is not the answer, especially when it comes at the expense of victims' safety and cuts short the justice they have fought so hard for. With just 5% of domestic abuse-related crimes reported to the police leading to a conviction, victims frequently tell me that they do not trust that justice will be served. So, for perpetrators to now likely have the time they spend behind bars significantly slashed, I fear what little confidence survivors had left will be completely eroded. Mr. Gauke's 200-page report will lower the prison population by 9,800 inmates. Prison chiefs fear they will run out of cells by spring. The review also calls for greater use of technology, like electronic tagging, to monitor offenders in the community and action to support criminals whose offending is driven by drugs, alcohol or mental illness. And judges should hand out more punishments outside of jail, it said, such as football, travel or driving bans. Restrictions on an offender's access to social media should also be considered. And Mr. Gauke urged ministers to consider expanding the use of chemical castration to reduce the threat posed by sex offenders. He wrote, problematic sexual arousal and preoccupation can be reduced via chemical suppressants and other medications, which can be prescribed for individuals who have committed a sexual offense. In developing an evidence base for the use of chemical suppression, the review also recommends that the government undertake further research into the international use of chemical suppression in offender management. Chemical suppression has been used across Europe, including Germany, Denmark, and Poland. Baroness Newlove, the Victims Commissioner, said, the reforms set out in their review place great emphasis on community and license supervision, as more offenders are diverted from custodial sentences. My overriding concern is whether the already stretched probation service can withstand this additional pressure. Managing offenders is a skilled job with serious public safety implications. The additional funding is welcome and will allow more staff to be recruited, but many long-serving staff have left the service in recent years. You cannot buy experience. Tens of thousands more criminals will be monitored in the community, through tagging. And judges will hand out more punishments outside of jail such as football, travel or driving bans. Restrictions on an offender's access to social media will also be considered. Chair of the Independent Sentencing Review David Gauke said, the scale of the crisis we are in cannot be understated. Overcrowded prisons are leading to dangerous conditions for staff and contributing to high levels of reoffending. We cannot build our way out of it. To stabilize the prison system and end the dangerous cycle of emergency releases, the government must take decisive action. These recommendations, which span the entirety of the justice system, are focused not only on bringing the prison population under control but ultimately reducing reoffending and ensuring victims are protected. Taken as a package, These measures should ensure the government is never again in a position where it is forced to rely on the emergency release of prisoners. I urge the Lord Chancellor and Prime Minister to act with bravery in their response.